I'd like to introduce Sue from Wales, who takes LDN for multiple sclerosis. Thank you for joining me, Sue.
Hello?
Could you tell us when it was you first noticed that there was something wrong with you?
It was about 7 years ago when I was 44. No, 45. That's right, because I gave up smoking when I was 45, and it's around about then that I started noticing that I didn't feel right, which is rather strange. I've been trying to give up smoking for ages. Apparently that's not brilliant for MS. MS is what I'm taking LDN for, by the way. And the symptoms that I first noticed were like difficulty gripping, a lot of difficulty gripping. Not so as you'd think there was anything much wrong with you at first, but it just gradually, very, very gradually. I think you call it insidious. I think that's a good way of describing it, because it really does creep up on you. I couldn't grip. I was tending to drop things, and I felt as if I was walking on ice. You know when it's icy and you're worried about falling all the time because it's icy and slippery. Well, I felt like that even when it wasn't icy and slippery. Mm-hmm. When it was icy and slippery, I was like an 80-year-old, like not able to walk properly and so frightened, absolutely convinced that I was going to fall all of the time. And like I said, I was dropping things and I was jerky. I went to the doctors and at first I was just given some blood tests, which didn't showed that I was fine, supposedly, which I wasn't. So I left it for about a year, and I started a new job, a full-time job that was very, very stressful, and I just took a complete nosedive. I got a lot worse quite quickly. Well, I only lasted 8 months in that job, and I went back to the doctors, who decided what she did. She was marvelous. She actually did me a test. Where she sort of put her hand on the bottom of my foot and pushed it. And then they test your reflexes as well, and my reflexes were so weird. Like normally when you do that reflex thing on your knee, your leg just jerks a little bit. Well, mine was mad, it was really, really strong, really strong. Apparently that's a real big clue. So she sent me off to a neurologist, and off I went. Not much of a wait, fair play, to a neurologist, who immediately decided he knew what it was. He didn't say it at the time, but he knew. And there's something when you can't feel your hands properly. I can't remember the name of it. But there's a TV program called Body of Proof, and the girl in it actually had this. That's it, paresthesia? Paresthesia? I think that's it. And I typed that in, and this was one of the first things that came up. So I went back to the doctors, and he sent me for a what is it, the scan?
MRI?
That's the one, yes, thank you. For an MRI scan, and he went back in, and he told me, I was with my mum, and he told me that, now this was in 2011, I was 49 then, and my husband was 50. It was a great 50th birthday present for him, to find out that his wife had multiple sclerosis, primary progressive, which is the type that you get diagnosed with generally when you're older. So just to make sure, they decided to send me for a lumbar puncture, which it's quite nasty, a lumbar puncture, but if you curl up really tight and keep really still, you can get through it quite well. I did have a panic attack after that one when I came home, but everything was okay. And after that, after my diagnosis, which was pretty straightforward, I started work part-time, which was better for me. But still, I was very slow, very, very slow in every way. I walked slowly. I just did everything slowly. It's like I still work, but slowly. Mm-hmm. And I had plans to walk Offa's Dyke and to do quite a bit of walking. I bought my walking boots, and I was thinking about it, and then I discovered that I couldn't even walk the length of the nearest beach anymore. I'd get back, I'd have to pick my legs up to get them into the car, but I wasn't breathless. It doesn't make you breathless. And actually, one thing, for years, I've choked on my food regularly, and I never ever just thought I was a clumsy eater, and I was trying to breathe and eat at the same time. But apparently that's a symptom of MS as well. So in February last year, I thought, well, the doctors, they've got nothing. There is absolutely nothing at all officially for primary progressive. But there's a doctor locally who prescribed it. But he also wanted to do a thorough investigation, and he wanted you to go on the paleo diet and all sorts of other things, which I didn't really want to do. So I've heard of eMed, which is an online doctors, and they will give you a prescription for LDN. And all you've got to do is register for it, and then you put some answers into some questions, and then you get a letter from your doctor. It can be an already existing letter. You don't have to get a special one. Send that off to them, scan it and send it. Don't even have to send it physically. And they will give you a prescription. And there's a lot of information there on eMed for you as well. Which tells you that you start off on a very low dosage, which I did. I started off on 1.5 milliliters, but it's like milligrams, 1.5 milligrams. So I signed up in February. Was it February this year? Yes, February this year I signed up. And I didn't actually, because my daughter's in the NHS and she wasn't really very approving of it. But by this time, my symptoms had got so bad, I thought I was going to have to give up work completely. And I was so angry all the time and so nervous, really nervous. I actually went for counselling, which helped, but there's only so much counselling can help you, to be honest. But I was nervous, really, really nervous all the time. I'm still a bit nervous, but I'm a lot better now. So yes, but fully until July, I think I'm just looking it up. I've got it written down here. I think it was early July I started taking it. 1.5 milliliters, or 1.5 milligrams for 2 weeks, and then you go up to 2 milligrams for 2 weeks, and you just keep going up until you feel that you're on a good dosage. So some of the symptoms, LDN didn't help, but the main symptom, I was much more lighthearted. The anxiety didn't completely go, because I've always been an anxious person, even before MS. It didn't go, but I was much more lighthearted, and everybody noticed how much easier I was. I didn't fly off the handle at the slightest thing quite so much, and I was just calmer and happier, and the fatigue went. I was still, I wasn't perfect, but I was a lot less fatigued. I could do a lot more. I felt amazing. I got the spring back in my step. And that, literally, it took a month. So really now I'm progressing. Sometimes you can, if you overdo it, you can still take a turn for the worse. Because I'm not brilliant at the moment, because I have been overdoing it. That's the trouble. LDN is so good. It acts quickly, but it also acts slowly. It immediately makes you feel better, but you start feeling better, and then you start feeling better and better. But beware, you can still feel worse again if you're not careful. And I'm in a bit of a dip at the moment, but I'm carrying on. I'm on 3 milligrams now, and I'm going to take a couple of days off work and change to 3.5, I think, to see how I go with that. So that's me at the moment. It's definitely helped me a lot. It was like an absolute miracle. I thought my life was over. So taking LDN has given me my life back. That's it.
So what would you say that LDN has done for you, if you have to list the changes that you've noticed?
Lightheartedness rather than extreme, not depression, but extreme anxiety. Mm-hmm. I would worry about everything. I've always been a worrier, but MS just sent it mad. I'd worry about, I'd pass somebody in the street and I think they were going to cross and die. It was awful. I was just so awfully anxious. It took away the anxiety. It took away a lot of the anxiety. And it gave me a lot more energy. It took away quite a lot of the numbness, because I was experiencing some numbness. It didn't take away the banding. I don't know if most of you probably heard of banding if you've got MS. It didn't take that away, unfortunately, but I'm going to probably try magnesium for that. I've heard that's good. So the one it didn't help was banding, but everything else, I would say everything else it helped with.
Uh-huh. What about the swallowing?
Yes, that's one that was one, because I've had that for so many years. That was one I definitely don't choke as much.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about that. That's one I didn't pick up on, but no, I hardly ever choke now. Whereas I used to with alarming regularity, so much so that if my family sort of noticed me coughing around the dinner table, they just ignore it. Mm-hmm. And if we had guests around, the guests would be absolutely terrified. But no, that's not a problem anymore.
And what about getting in the car?
I'm fine, but yes, I can walk further, and so yeah, that's the same. I don't have to lift my legs to get in the car anymore. Bear in mind that I stopped walking so far, so the lifting my legs when I got in the car was a side effect of me walking too far when I was bad. But now I can walk farther without having to. So it's more of the fact I can walk farther. I can take a lot more. I can do a lot more. Mm-hmm. Because what it was, I was managing my MS really well, but I had no life. But now I find I've actually got a life.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So I can actually do things that I couldn't do before. You know, well, it creeps up on you, MS. It creeps up on you so slowly. You don't realise how little you're doing. Mm. You just don't notice how little you're doing, and it's like an absolute miracle when you find that you can do things again, and you just feel like Superwoman. You really do. You really do, because it's just amazing that you can do things that you just taken for granted that you would never be able to do again. I
am so pleased with you, as I'm sure everybody else will be as well. And thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me do that. I hope I've said everything I needed to say. I think I have. I think I've said a lot of encouraging words for anybody who's thinking of trying it, because it's relatively easy to get hold of and it's pretty cheap. So, I mean, I don't think you can go wrong by trying it. Not for what I've experienced, but it doesn't work immediately for everyone. You have got to give it time. Some people have got to give it time. I was lucky it worked quickly for me. But I would stick with it.